Good morning, learners and general viewers. My name is Edith Mburugo from Manguo School, Kiambu County, Githurai Sub-County. Today, we are going to learn in agriculture, grade 7, and our strand is food production processes. The sub-strand is preparing planting site and establishing the crop. Now, I know many of us are getting worried or wondering why agriculture and nutrition are merged as a subject or learning area. But it's because agriculture deals with the food production at the farm or gardening level, where the nutrition deals with food at production in cooking, processing, and presentation. All of them are geared towards offering proper nutrition into our bodies for proper growth and development. I know in the previous classes in primary school, you learned so much on planting materials. And I know in grade 5 and 6, you learned about how to get and process and prepare planting materials from the plants. And before we go on much, I want us to remind ourselves what are planting materials. Now, planting materials are the part of the plant that are used to propagate or produce new crops. Now, if we can have a general and a short overview of planting materials, is that some of the materials or some of the crops are propagated from their parts. For example, we have seeds. Most of the fruit and vegetables are propagated from seeds. And seeds are of different shapes, color, and sizes. And since time immemorial, we know that seeds are a natural way of reproduction or propagation in plants. Other types of planting materials are tubers, which are the roots, and others are the suckers, which are the young plants that grow beside the main plant that was grown. Other crops are propagated from stem cuttings, others from the vines. And I know from our prior information or knowledge, we can tell the crops that can be propagated using seeds. Most of the fruits, such as mangoes, such as oranges, beans, maize. You have covered them in grade 5 and 6. But our main issue today, since our main objective or specific learning outcomes are determining, or by the end of the lesson or substrand, the learner should be able to determine appropriate tilth for selected planting materials. And another one will be the learner should be able to identify tools and equipments and materials needed for preparing the right tilth for the right planting material. And finally, the learner should be able to appreciate various types of tilth used for establishment of different crop planting materials. In our lesson, we are going to develop some of the core competencies like critical thinking and problem solving, because we have learned that, especially in our country, Kenya, food insecurity has been the main problem. And we want to solve the problem through agriculture. We are also going to develop some core values, such as responsibility, and cater for the pertinent contemporary issues, which is health and safety. This is because we have learned most of our children in our schools are really malnutrited, specifically not because of lack of food or lack of resources, but because of lack of knowledge. For this reason, we are going to go direct to our lesson and ask ourselves, before we start going through the process of learning today, we will ask ourselves, how does planting material determine the tilth that is going to be used in preparation or in the planting? How does the planting material determine planting site preparation? Now, we have gone through, reminded ourselves of the planting materials, and now we want to go and define the main terms and concepts that we are going to be going through or mentioning throughout our lesson. And the first term we want to define is tillage, or generally what we refer to as primary tillage. Now, tillage means breaking the ground or breaking the soil from a virgin land. And by this, or by virgin land, means the land that has not been cultivated before. And for tillage, we cannot just get crops and planting materials and start planting in the bush. We have to clear the bush and then have the tillage. The general or the primary digging of the land is what we are referring to as primary tillage before planting can take place. And then we are going to talk about tilth. Tilth is the right condition of the soil before sowing or before planting. The right condition of the soil before planting or sowing is called the tilth. Now, there are three types of tilth that we can prepare as we prepare to grow or to establish crops. And the first type of tilth is fine tilth. Now, the word tilth comes from tilling or tillage, breaking the soil. So we have the fine tilth, which means after we dig or we till the virgin land, the soil is so contaminated with residue, with obstacles, and even with big lumps of the soil that may not be fit for planting or growing of such planting materials as very tiny seeds. As we said, planting materials come in different sizes, shapes, and colors. And some of the soil after primary tillage, it is not ready for planting. We need further preparation of the soil before sowing. And this is what we have referred to as secondary tillage. So I said that primary tillage is breaking the ground or the virgin land in preparation for planting. And secondary tillage is preparing the soil ready for sowing depending on the type of planting material that you are going to sow or to plant. Now, fine tilth means that the soil is prepared into very small particles. Those lumps are beaten and flattened or hollowed until they are so fine, ready for planting. And this is done only when we are planting very tiny seeds. Seeds such as the carrot seeds, they are so tiny. Such as cabbage seeds, seeds such as finger millet, they are very fine. Seeds such as tomatoes and tree tomato seeds, they are very tiny. In fact, we prepare very fine tilth in a nursery bed. We make a nursery bed for them where we have to sow them, they germinate and become seedlings. And then seedlings will be transplanted into the main land, which is referred to as a seed bed. In fact, it is good to be clear when differentiating or distinguishing between a nursery bed and a seed bed. A nursery bed is a small piece of land where those tiny seeds are sown, they germinate, awaiting transplanting into the main garden. And the main garden where these seedlings will be transplanted is referred to as the seedbed. Now, in the seedbed, we can do transplanting, or we can also sow directly, especially when we are dealing with large planting materials. The second type of tilth is medium tilth. Now, after digging or having the primary tillage, the soil is so lumpy. It has so many residue like roots, some of the weeds which are not dry, others are weeds which can even regenerate and grow very fast and cover the crops. We also have obstacles such as stones that need to be removed when we are producing the tilth, when we are preparing the tilth. Now, medium tilth has medium-sized lumps. It is not as fine, it's not as smooth as the fine tilth. Now, this one, the medium tilth, will be used for planting or sowing some medium-sized planting materials such as maize seeds or corn seeds, bean seeds, French beans. They have medium-sized seeds that will actually not be disturbed so much by the big lumps of the soil. But all in all, they are not big enough to save themselves from the power or the force of big obstacles like big roots, big stones. They have to be removed. Now, when we have the medium tilth, we are growing medium-sized crops or planting materials. Then we will talk about the coarse tilth. The coarse is the rough tilth, the soil. Now, in this case, depending on what planting material you are going to sow, you don't need so much of breaking of the soil after tillage, because the material you are going to sow is huge or is bigger in size. For example, if I think of planting suckers, suckers are the young plants that grow from the main plant. For example, we have a banana tree. If that is a banana tree, this is the main tree. I will have others that start developing from the sides. And these that are developing from the sides here, they are the ones I will call suckers. Now, these suckers, if I need to grow a new banana plant, then it means I'll dig and cut out this one together with part of its root. And then this sucker, it's a big planting material. It's not as tiny as the seeds that we have been talking about. So I do not need to have a fine tilth when developing, when preparing the tilth for growing such. So after tillage, I only need to make a big hole which will fit this and prepare it, probably remain the excess and trim the roots which are excessively long, and then have the sucker transplanted directly from the mother plant, and I bring it to its own place. And then after some time, after I continue with the cultural or the farm practices that we are going to cover in the following lessons, then it is able to grow. Because of its size, does not need the soil to be prepared so much. Now, before I continue, I would like to reflect on first what we have said. We have talked about 3 types of tilth. And we have said 1, types of tilth. We have said 1, I have fine tilth. I have 2, medium tilth. And finally, I have coarse tilth. So in simple language, tilth depends on the texture of the soil prepared for growing crops. Now, I have mentioned some of the materials that we use for planting or to propagate crops. Some of the planting materials. And I want us to do a simple exercise. And having various types of planting materials, like powder planting materials. I would give you one, maize seeds. Maize, which we also refer to as corn. Then we shall have bean seeds. Bean seeds. Then number 3, we can have tomato seeds. Number 4, probably we can have 3 tomato seeds. We can have amaranth seeds. Now, 3 tomato fruits that are reddish in color, and in local language we used to call them matunda ya damu. Amaranth ni terere. They are vegetables we normally use. And we could have even banana saka. I would even have sweet potato vines, and even the grape vines. Now, these being a few but enough examples to use for our exercise, I would want us to try to get the logic that I'm trying to teach here today, that when you are preparing the tilth, the smaller the planting material, then the finer the tilth required. I repeat, the logic in preparation of the tilth is the smaller the planting material, the finer the tilth required. So with this, then we can just see where or which type of tilth that we need to propagate or to plant such planting materials. Now, we have maize seeds, and I am sure we have seen maize seeds where they are medium-sized seeds. They are not so tiny, they are not so big. So in this case, maize seeds will require medium tilth. Bean seeds also are medium-sized, so they also require medium tilth. Then we have tomato seeds. These are quite tiny. They are so small. There are so many in one fruit, such that you require to prepare a very fine tilth in a nursery bed. So this will require fine tilth. And then the 3 tomatoes, again, very tiny seeds. They will require fine tilth. Amaranth seeds, the terere seeds, they are so small that you are not even able to handle one by your fingers. Therefore, they require also very fine tilth. When I look at banana sucker, it's a huge planting material. So, it will require coarse. The word coarse means rough. Coarse tilth. The word coarse means rough. So these the lumps which are not beaten, they are just the way probably they were tilled. Then the sweet potato vines may also require coarse tilth. And also grape vines will require coarse tilth. Now, learners. In our localities, I want us to make a list of various planting materials and match them with the type of tilth required for planting from your locality. Identify various planting materials and match them with the type of tilth that is required for their growth. Now, learners, I want us to look at the materials that are required for preparing different types of tilth. Which materials do we require? Which materials do we require for preparing different types of tilth? If you are able to imagine in the primary tillage, which will give us the coarse tilth, we require jembes for coarse tilth. I said coarse tilth is produced at primary tillage. That is when we are breaking the virgin land that has never been cultivated. We will require tractors after clearing the bushes. We will require some tractors to probably uproot the tree stumps that remain. Probably we will require jembes and hoes to break down the soil. Some of the soils are so hard because they are near or they have been used as road. They have hard pans where the water has been collecting for long. The surface runoff, especially after this such rainy season, we have pools of water standing everywhere or stagnating everywhere. And after that water dries, it will leave that soil compacted. So that's what we refer to as the hard pan. So you require strong materials or digging tools for primary tillage, which will give us the rough course. So we are going to use materials such as tractors. Now, why we need a tractor, it all depends on the scale of your production. This may be necessary if you're having large scale production, especially when I go to Transoya, where they are growing maize enough to feed our nation. And they have large plantations of maize. They cannot just use jembes and hoes to till the ground. So they may use tractors, they may use plows, which could probably be the moldboard plows. They may use jembes if you are in jembes, which are also referred to as hoes. A jembe is a hoe, a traditional jembe that will be used for digging, especially on wet ground or marshy areas, but areas without stones. Now, these ones will give us coarse tilth. Then the other materials that we use for medium tilth. The materials that are going to be used for medium tilth include the fork jembe, a hoe can also be used, and the back of the rake, we are going to establish the medium sized tilth using those materials. Then, for us to make the fine tilth, we require the rake, we require the fork jembe, the fork jembe, we require the farm fork. We can also, if we're in large scale, we can make fine tilth by using a machine called a tilther. Now, a tilther looks like a plow, but with different, fixed with different size of teeth or forks. That if you want the medium size, you need to set the teeth. If you also want to have the large tilth or the coarse tilth, you also adjust. So a tilther is an adjustable machine that is used for making different types of tilth. You could also use the sweeps. Now, these are the materials we require when we are preparing different tilth for sowing or planting different planting materials. Now, since we are in CBC, competency-based curriculum, we always ask ourselves, supposing I don't have the tool, supposing I do not have the money to buy these tools. Some of them are so expensive that unless they are communally owned, individual farmers cannot own them. Or they are probably owned by the government or by the government parastatals. For now, we do not stop preparing our tilth because probably we don't have the land or the money, or we don't have the tools themselves. Then we can use materials that are locally available to improvise for tools required for making different types of tilth. So I want to talk about improvising materials for making a tilth. Improvising materials used for making tilth. Now, to improvise means to make a tool or something to use using locally available materials without necessarily going to the farm, without necessarily going to borrow, without necessarily going to undertake other costs of getting the same material. We can use locally available materials. Now, we can use things like sticks to break up. So you can use sticks to break up the lumps. After the land is tilled using the djembe or the others for primary tillage, then you can use sticks to break those lumps into small soil particles to make the tilth that is required. You can also use the fibrous roots from maize or from corn. Now, after making the tilth, especially if you're making the fine tilth for planting or growing those very small seeds, then you can get the lower part of the maize cob. It has fibrous roots that actually looks like this. There's the stem, which has nodes, and the type of roots here look like this. They look like a broom. And when it's quite strong, they are hard enough to spread the soil that has been broken down using the sticks, or to do leveling. I mean, we can level or spread the soil or even break those particles into finer tilth using the root or the fibrous roots from the corn. You can also use strings for leveling, strings like sisal for leveling. So we cannot fail to prepare the right tilth just because we do not have, or simply because we do not have the right tools. Our issue is to have the job done and done in the best way possible. Our main objective is to establish crop which will give us nutrition and to solve our problem of food insecurity. Now, in conclusion, I want to have a summary of what we have learned, and we have said that planting material is a part of a plant that is used to produce a young or a new crop. We have said that planting materials are the parts of the plants that are used to produce new plants, and we have given examples such as stem cuttings, suckers, tubers, vines, seeds, and seedlings. We have also said that tilth is the right texture or the right condition of the soil that is used for sowing or before doing planting. We have also said that in preparation of the tilth vis-a-vis the planting material is that we apply the logic that the bigger the planting material, the coarse the tilth, and the smaller the planting material, the finer the tilth that is required. We have also said that we use different materials and tools in preparing the tilth. And the whole issue, the whole idea of preparing the tilth is to break the lumps into the right particles of the soil, to remove the obstacles such as stones, to remove the residue such as the weeds and the roots of the weeds that have been uprooted. And we've also said that there are three types of tilth: fine tilth, medium tilth, and coarse tilth. Before I leave, I'll give you some extension work in project form. So the extension work, these days we don't talk about the homework because we can do it anywhere, not necessarily at home. The extension work, I'm requesting the learners and my good viewers to undertake a project of preparing a planting site for establishing the following crop. 1, we want a project of preparing a site for establishing tomato nursery bed. Tomato nursery bed. 2, we will require a project of the preparation of planting site for establishing French bean seed bed. French bean seed bed. And 3, to prepare a site for growing potato. That is potato seed bed. The potato, I mean the Irish potatoes. They require seed bed and not nursery. In that case, if you have been keen, you have noted for tomato, I talked about nursery bed because we expect seedlings to be raised, then to be transplanted later. Then, if we do that, I also request you to use the right tools for preparing that. You will identify the tools to use. If you don't have, you are going to improvise using the locally available materials in your locality. I know we come from different localities. I may talk of the root of maize cob, of maize plant, and then you find where you come from, you don't grow maize, but you can get something else that has fibrous roots, and that's where we are going to see your critical thinking and problem solving. Then for parental involvement, with the guidance of your parent or guardian, identify other crops that require fine tilth, medium tilth, and coarse tilth respectively for establishment. For parental involvement, with the guidance of your parent or guardian, identify other crops that require fine tilth, medium tilth, and coarse tilth respectively for establishment. We are going to meet in the next lesson, and we shall check on the project work, the tilth that you are prepared, and if you have listed down the different crops that you have identified that require fine tilth, medium tilth, and coarse tilth respectively. Remember, the logic here is the smaller the planting material, the finer the tilth needed for establishing. Goodbye. See you in the next lesson. God bless.